and welcome to Capitol Journal. I'm Jeff Sanders in for Todd Stacy this week. Thanks so much for joining us. All eyes in the political world were on Chicago this week for the Democratic National Convention, an event that saw significant changes in just the past month. Under mounting pressure to withdraw, President Joe Biden announced he would not seek re-election and endorsed his Vice President Kamala Harris as his successor. Harris then selected Minnesota Governor Tim Walz as her vice presidential running mate. In her acceptance speech Thursday night at the DNC, Harris emphasized familiar themes of unity, bringing together a divided country.
I accept your nomination to be President of the United States of America. A president who unites us around our highest aspirations. A president who leads and listens, who is realistic, practical, and has common sense, and always fights for the American people. Our nation with this election has a precious, fleeting opportunity to move past the bitterness, cynicism, and divisive battles of the past, a chance to chart a new way forward. So let's get out there, let's fight for it, let's get out there, let's vote for it, and together let us write the next great chapter in the most extraordinary story ever told. Thank you. God bless you, and may God bless the United States of America.
Now, among the dozens of speakers at this week's DNC was Shamari Figures, who is running against Republican Caroline Dobson for Alabama's newly drawn 2nd Congressional District. You may recall that the U.S. Supreme Court ruled 5-4 last year that the proposed congressional district in Alabama was gerrymandered, discriminating against black voters in violation of the Voting Rights Act. The new district gives Democrats a stronger chance to win a 2nd seat in Congress from Alabama. That could go a long way in helping them regain control of the U.S. House of Representatives.
Sweet home Alabama. I am running for Alabama's 2nd Congressional District. This is the district that gave America the Tuskegee Airmen, Rosa Parks, Fred Gray, and it is the birthplace of the civil rights movement in Montgomery, Alabama. My pathway to this stage was paved by a legacy of fighters. Fighters that include my mother, Alabama State Senator Vivian Davis Figures, who is here at her 11th DNC. And it also includes my father, my late father, Michael Figures, who was also a state senator and civil rights lawyer who sued the Klan into bankruptcy. Listen, all of America, all of us owe a debt to courageous freedom fighters, both known and unknown, a debt that can never be repaid. But what we can do is ensure that the work of those fighters who came before us continues, and that our sacred right to vote is always protected.
Despite Alabama being a strong Republican state, many of its leading Democrats made the trip to the DNC in Chicago this week, either as delegates or party representatives. Among them was former U.S. Senator Doug Jones. I spoke with him during the convention to get his thoughts on why Vice President Kamala Harris is the Democrats' best chance to defeat former President Donald Trump in November.
I've been to conventions now since probably 1988. The Barack Obama 2008 was really, really exciting. But I think this really takes on a life of its own. It's the most exciting, energized Democratic Party convention I've ever been to, from start to finish.
Talk about how the party has coalesced around the vice president and her nomination.
I think a lot of it was the party was also kind of reflective of America, that people were not really happy with either of the candidates. of the two major political parties. But I will tell you, the Democratic Party loved Joe Biden. They still love Joe Biden. He got an incredible reception here the other night. There just were questions. Everybody knew that. It was going into this. But the way I think everyone coalesced around Kamala Harris so quickly to make sure that that generational torch was passed to a younger generation, somebody that can really help unify the party, has been really exciting to watch.
There's a good chunk of the country that's going to vote Democrat, a good chunk we know that's going to vote Republican. So it's kind of a narrow margin there. You know, the Republicans are going to come after her. Donald Trump has said that she's not a very smart woman. She has a low IQ. How do you sway those 1 to 2%?
Kamala Harris has been a local prosecutor and an attorney general for the most populous state in the country. In fact, that California has as many people as a lot of countries around the world. She's been the attorney general. She's been the U.S. senator. She has been the vice president. You don't get to those places if you're not very smart. But this is about the soul of America. This is about who we are in this country, who we're going to vote for to represent us, not only domestically, but around the world. And you contrast Kamala Harris with someone like Donald Trump, who is basically at this point somewhat incoherent, doesn't make any sense, and is looking at nothing but what's in it for him and retribution. I think people are tired of that. It's old school, and nobody likes that anymore. So yes, Alabama, we're not going to win Alabama, but we're going to make great strides because that's what the country's looking for. And I can tell you, Jeff, so many people from around the country, so many people are looking, including Alabama, are looking for folks that'll work together, that'll treat each other with dignity, respect, and civility. And you don't see that coming from Donald Trump and J.D. Vance. And that's why I think that Kamala Harris is going to do very well in Alabama. It is going to help in that second congressional district and give Shamari Figures the win in November to put another Democrat in the halls of Congress from the great state of Alabama.
Now, in addition to former Senator Doug Jones, several other prominent Democratic politicians were present at the DNC this week, including State Senators Bobby Singleton and Kirk Hatcher, along with State Representative Philip Ensler. I spoke with all three via Zoom during the convention. Their message: the Democratic Party is gaining strength, and they believe this national momentum will eventually impact down-ballot races in Alabama.
Super excited to be here in Chicago for this convention. This is my fifth convention since I've been involved in politics since 2004. And I must say that this is probably one of the more exciting conventions that I've been in outside of Obama First convention in Denver. This convention has that same electric feeling to it.
Amazing energy, a lot of optimism, and look, people are here, to continue to do the job for the American people. And what's better than having an opportunity to be a part of this process of selecting persons who will lead our country? So you can expect, I don't know what may have been happening, maybe 4 weeks ago, but I can tell you, there's a whole resurrection going on in this place now.
It's more than just a good time. It means that people are hopeful. They're about the candidacy. It means that they are fired up to have a more forward-thinking, a more inclusive vision for America. So anyone watching on TV, it's not just some big party and that's it. It is that people really feel energized to fight for our democracy, to fight for equal rights, to fight for women's rights. And they just want to know that there's going to be an inclusive vision that really includes all Americans in that future.
I'm saying to those who are undecided out there, those who have not yet made your mind up about Kamala Harris, we have a big tent. You can fall up under this tent. We are America. We believe in what America's doing. That's why our theme this week has been about freedom, the ability to free to think, the freedom to be able to say what you feel and to be able to address those issues as you feel. We feel really, really good about where we are. And I think the state of Alabama, there are areas in the state of Alabama that are turning purple, that we have seen let's look at Huntsville. Huntsville, there's some areas, some districts up there that are turning purple. It's simply because people are moving and people are not just trying to be about just party, but people are willing to vote their pocketbooks, and they're willing to vote those issues that are important to them.
What happens congressionally, what happens on the federal level impacts the everyday rights of people in our state, from reproductive freedom to IVF, to investments in small businesses and public education. All of those things make a difference. And who controls Congress has that impact. We have a lot of people that are taking credit for roads and bridges that are being built and improved in Alabama, but that's because there was a Congress that was elected that passed those policy priorities, and that's why we need to make sure that we keep the House, keep the Senate Democrat, make the House Democratic, keep the Senate Democrat, and certainly win the White House.
And a reminder, Election Day in November, just about 2.5 months away. In other news this week, as the new school year begins, teachers will have more clarity and authority over classroom discipline, thanks to the recent approval of the Teachers' Bill of Rights by state lawmakers. The new law requires schools to take action against students who cause disruptions serious enough for teachers to remove them from the class. Before a student can return, the principal must provide a written documentation outlining the disciplinary measures taken. Governor Kay Ivey recently signed that bill into law, marking a significant legislative win for the Alabama Education Association.
So this legislation, now law, enables teachers to have more empowerment in their classroom and dealing with student discipline challenges, creates more of a dialogue between the principals and the teachers to further enable children to help them with the discipline challenges that our teachers are facing. We've seen an uptick in children's discipline challenges in the schools for various reasons, and this helps our teachers have some additional tools in their toolbox to deal with those things and create a more consistent dialogue between the administration, the teacher, the parents, and the student to address the underlying concerns and correct the problems where they are.
The city of Birmingham is receiving more funding to get high tech in the fight against crime. The city is receiving $4.2 million in federal funding from the Department of Justice. The funding was secured by U.S. Senator Katie Britt. It will be used by the city's real-time crime center to purchase additional cameras and install them in high crime areas. The center supports local and state law enforcement officers and their ability to respond more quickly to crimes in progress or to those that have recently taken place. As we said earlier, the new school year has kicked off across Alabama with students returning to their classrooms. To motivate and inspire them, Governor Kay Ivey is traveling the state as part of her Back to School tour. This tour follows recent news that approximately 1,800 Alabama public school students will have to repeat the third grade due to low reading scores. The 2019 Alabama Literacy Act requires third graders to meet specific reading benchmarks to advance to fourth grade. To allow students and schools time to recover from pandemic-related learning disruptions, state lawmakers postponed the law's implementation until this year. During her tour, Governor Ivey visited her hometown of Camden and spoke to students at J.E. Hobbs Elementary School.
This is the third school in Wilcox County we've been today, and my mission is to encourage our students to read and read a lot. We're trying to get them to understand if they learn to read, they can read to learn. And that's so important here at school, to be able to learn and read well. So it's a privilege to get to work with these teachers and these students. I'm proud to be from Wilcox County. In 2024, in my State of the State address, I invited the fourth grade from this school to join me that night. And I pointed out that then the fourth grade, now the fifth grade, those students had the highest reading gain of all the turnaround schools. So it's working, our teachers are working hard, and our students are learning to read, and that is so, so important.
As we mentioned, the new school year is underway, and while students and staff prepare for the months ahead, law enforcement is also gearing up to address potential issues related to violence or troubled students. Capitol Journal's Randy Scott has that story.
Law enforcement officials and school resource officers are taking a seminar at the Alabama State University on how to fight crime at local schools. The Prevent School Violence program, along with Montgomery Public Schools, aren't just focusing on weapons, but social and mental health concerns.
We're dealing with so many other societal issues. We're dealing with social injustice. We're dealing with poverty. We're dealing with trauma. We're dealing with mental illnesses. We're dealing with so many things, what we call that invisible backpack or book bag that those students carry. And if we don't build a relationship with them, we don't know what's inside of that book bag.
Charles Flowers, co-founder of That Works Incorporated, says his company helps agencies improve restorative practices or character building with staff. In this case, some of that staff happens to be students.
Everyone has a voice, and a lot of times students are misunderstood because they are not allowed to speak. But in restorative practice, it is a part of the process that you are required to speak.
Organizers say active shooter training classes are the genesis behind this course, but not the only subject matter they're going to cover. They're going to look at things including mental health issues and peer pressure.
We're trying to help the school holistically. So although the program is named Preventing School Violence, stress management helps with that too, right? Also, mental health has become a big thing, right? So we want to treat the whole system, the whole school community.
Also taking part is Dr. Selena Cutts-Day, the Assistant Chief of Security for Montgomery Public Schools.
We want to keep the kids in school. We don't want them to get involved in discipline where we're putting them back into the community, back in the elements that are contributing to them making the bad decisions. So again, referring back to this program, is teaching them to employ the restorative circles so that they can resolve the conflict and help the kids to make better decisions.
This program's goal is to make sure staff and students get the help they need.
When you give those police officers and security guards resources and tools to use for us, when they can help identify a person that might be going through a crisis, help identify a person that might be on the edge of doing something bad or is being victimized by someone else. So when you give resources and tools to people in positions that's able to make a change, you see positive results.
In Montgomery, Randy Scott, Capital Journal.
Governor Kay Ivey has appointed a board of trustees for the upcoming healthcare-focused high school in Demopolis. Here is a look at the 8 board members appointed. The school will provide diverse curriculum featuring STEM courses covering science, technology, engineering, and mathematics alongside healthcare-related classes. It will collaborate with Whitfield Regional Hospital to enhance its offerings. This year, Ivey and lawmakers allocated $15 million to the project. Additionally, Bloomberg Philanthropies has committed $26.4 million, contingent on the state covering the remaining expenses. As the college football season kicks off this weekend, mascots from Alabama's 14 public universities gathered at the state capitol to celebrate College Colors Day. Sponsored by the Higher Education Partnership, this annual event showcases the importance of higher education in Alabama. To join the celebration, everyone is encouraged to wear your favorite college apparel this coming Friday, August 30th. Gordon Stone of the Higher Education Partnership says College Colors Day is a great way to remind Alabamians of the vital role four-year universities play in the state.
Well, the Higher Education Partnership is very pleased every year to have the opportunity to work with the governor's office. And Governor Ivey has been so special about this to announce that we want to pick a day and call it College Colors Day so that the folks who love our universities can celebrate in unison across the state. And why do we do that? Because Alabama's universities have a $20 billion annual economic impact. We have locations along every major arterial. We have locations in every corner of this state. We're in all 67 counties with our outreach programs. Alabama's universities are making a difference in this economy. Our governor is making a difference in this economy. And what a great partnership. And so we just ask everybody on the 30th of August this year to celebrate with us, wear your colors, support your favorite team or your school that you graduated from, and let everybody know how important our universities are. Pre-K through PhD is the statement we like to make, and we want to encourage our young people to think big, educate big, and do big.
The strength of our schools comes from the strength of our students. It's the knowledge and dedication of students like the ones here today that will lead us into a bright future. Whether you're studying engineering, finance, education, or any of the countless fields available at our institutions, your success helps build a stronger Alabama.
A landmark of Alabama's Gulf Coast is now officially back open to visitors just in time to finish out the summer tourism season. The renovated Gulf State Park Pier reopened on Monday, welcoming people for the first time in 9 months. Now, the pier closed in November of last year for a $13.6 million renovation project. Hurricane Sally destroyed a 200-foot section of the pier in September of 2020. However, despite the reopening, the pier's elevated observation deck located on the octagon at the pier's south end remains closed and won't be accessible to the public until a new elevator is installed. Coming up later in the show, we speak with State Parks Director Greg Lein about the tens of millions of dollars in renovations happening at Alabama State Parks, including the new pier at Gulf State Park. We'll also hear from Alabama State University President Quinton about the upcoming year at one of America's most renowned HBCUs. But first, after the break, Dr. Allison King from the Alabama Education Association will join us to discuss the new Teachers' Bill of Rights and the AEA's goals for educators in the state this year. Capital Journal will be right back.
You can watch past episodes of Capital Journal online at video.aptv.org. Capital Journal episodes are also available on APTV's free mobile app. You can also connect with Capital Journal and link to past episodes on Capital Journal's Facebook page. And you can listen to past episodes of Capital Journal when you're driving or on the go with Capital Journal podcasts. You're watching Alabama Public Television.
And welcome back to Capital Journal. I'm joined now by Dr. Allison King with the Alabama Education Association. School is back in session, which means it's an exciting time of the year for both students and for teachers, and the AEA is always advocating for teachers throughout the state. Allison, thanks so much for joining us. We appreciate it so much.
Happy to be here.
Let's talk about AEA. You all have been around for a long, long time.
Yes.
And I would imagine the mission is probably still the basic mission it's always been.
Absolutely. AEA is a tried and true organization that served our state for over 150 years. And we work to advocate for the betterment of public education. It's quite as simple as that.
Work for the betterment of public education. You yourself were a teacher once, so I would imagine that it's really nice having that background, bringing it to your role in government relations.
Yes, I served for 10 years as a classroom teacher, 5th and 6th grade language arts, and in school leadership before moving to work for AEA. And I started my career with AEA as a UniServe director, so I worked as a district director where I serviced about 60 schools here in the River region, and worked directly with the teachers and the students and the administrators to advocate for the betterment of our profession, and I've just recently moved to the government relations world the last couple of years. So.
You mentioned the betterment of your profession. Teaching is, I've always thought it, and a lot of people think the same thing, it is a noble calling.
Absolutely.
But it is a very challenging calling, and not everyone is cut out to do it. What do you see as far as the teachers we're putting out there today? How are they handling kind of this changing world we're living in?
Yeah. Well, our world is definitely ever-changing. I firmly believe there is no greater work than that of public education and the people that work in that field. Even being in the work I do now, I still tell people every day it's the hardest job I ever had was being a public school teacher, and they are some of the best and brightest folks that we've got in this state, and I'm so thankful to get up every day and be able to work on behalf of them. But we at AEA service about 90,000 members across the state, and we have full wraparound services between our local advocacy with our UniServe directors to our legal representation with specialized attorneys, into the political representation of what I do with our government relations work, and professional development opportunities through our education policy division. We are happy to service the education professionals in all of our schools in every district across the state, and it is truly a job where I feel like I get to serve the best profession in the world and advocate on their behalf, because they are busy in our classroom serving our kids and can't always be here to speak on their own behalf. So we're thankful to be able to do that, and we get to serve as a champion for their causes, and celebrate the contributions that they make to both our communities and our students.
You mentioned about 90,000 members in AEA. Let's talk about this school year. I know an important event happened, and we had it earlier in the show, talking about the Teachers' Bill of Rights law that the governor signed into law, the bill that was signed into law. Talk about that a little bit. It really had bipartisan support this last session, and tell us a little bit more about that and why it's important.
Yeah, we were proud to champion the Teacher Bill of Rights this session. It was a much needed piece of legislation, and yes, it was a bipartisan effort. It passed unanimously, both in the House and the Senate, not one vote against it in committee or on the floor. So we were thankful for that, and it just went to show how needed the piece of legislation was and the law is now for our educators. Essentially, it is a behavioral support system that we're putting into place to help our classrooms be more secure and also more fruitful for our students and fostering a positive learning environment for them. It allows our teachers to have a little bit more say in excluding students that are disruptive and working collaboratively with their principal and their superintendent and the parents as well to make sure that students' needs are met and address the discipline challenges that they're seeing.
You mentioned discipline challenges, and we mentioned earlier it's a changing world. Some school districts across the nation and some states have started to ban electronics, whether it's an Apple Watch like I'm wearing now, you know, a cell phone like I have here. And I was reading a story one day about a teacher. He said his class was over, and he heard in the hallway a student goes, "Well, what are you talking about?" And he's like, "I walked outside," and he realized students were talking to each other. And he had said in the last few years, when students left the classroom, it was very quiet. They're all on their phones, and he said it reminded him of when he was a child in school. Talk about. Let's delve a little bit more into that changing role, especially with technology. Is it more difficult now to be a teacher than it was, say, when you started?
Oh, I would definitely say yes, yes. And not just because of technology, just lots of different facets that go into the work of education, and specifically public education. Yeah, I think the work in the world is more challenging than ever for our folks that serve in this profession. But technology, to speak to technology, it's a tool, and a tool can be a good and a bad thing depending on how it's used, of course, and we're trying to help our students learn how to navigate those challenges in a way of integrity that helps them to grow as students. It can be a positive tool or it can be a negative tool depending on how it's used, and so the management of those structures in our schools and with our teachers is a challenge, and our districts are having to kind of decide what's best for their district as far as how much access they're allowing students to have to those devices.
And it always is important that we pay our teachers well. I know another teacher pay raise this past session as well. Talk about that.
Yeah, we're always happy to champion pay raises. We support those. I think our teachers are incredibly underpaid, but we have done a lot of things to move the salary schedule forward for them in recent years. I think about 18% over the last decade. It's been really fantastic, and we are so thankful for the legislature and the leadership with the governor that have supported those initiatives with us to help further our profession. And our starting teachers are now at $47,600. We're somewhat competitive here in the Southeast. We're not quite the highest. We'd like to see us, lead the Southeast in that area, but we are absolutely thankful for their pay raise and fully funding their benefits. Those are things that are important to people that serve in public service like this. Yeah.
What would you say to someone, maybe a young person watching or the parent of someone in school and their child is thinking about becoming a public educator? What would you tell them? Well, what's the advice you give someone? And I know you probably get asked this all the time.
Well, I would say that you absolutely need to pursue public education. I think being a teacher is, as you said, a calling, and it is hard work, but it is such rewarding work too. I mean, the relationships you form and the benefits you gain are mutually beneficial to you and the student. It's still a very noble profession. It is hard, but it is very much worth it and very rewarding.
Rewarding. You had a good session this past year here in 2024. 2025, believe it or not, we'll be here before you know it. And it'll be the halls here in the State House will be busy again. What are some of the priorities you're looking forward to as we kind of look ahead to next session?
Yes, we are looking forward to the 2025 session. The 2024 session was wonderful for us, but it was challenging in a lot of ways too for everyone. So we are hopeful to bring back our on-the-job injury bill. It has already been filed by Senator Gavan. It's SB1, and it will provide a workers' compensation benefit for our public education employees. Many people don't realize that school teachers and support professionals in our schools, even administrators, do not have any kind of workers' compensation if they are injured on the job. So we have worked collaboratively for a little over a year now, developing a program that would be a wonderful benefit to our education employees if and when they're injured on the job. So we're going to be looking to bring that back. It was very close to final passage last year and got caught up at the end of the session and didn't make it through the House, but we're hopeful to see that cross the finish line this year. We're also going to be supportive of some paid parental leave efforts that have been brought by Senator Figures and Representative Shaver. We're thankful for their leadership on those things, and those are some programs we'll be looking at supporting as well. So.
Parental leave is something that I remember covering this because I covered the Senate for Capitol Journal, and I think people forget sometimes maneuvering through the legislature can be a tricky situation. What was some of the pushback you had last year, and how do you alleviate some of those concerns going ahead?
Well, I wouldn't say there was necessarily pushback in a sense. There were bills that moved for state employees and also some for education employees, and trying to figure out the narratives between both of those, which benefits are needed, are the needs similar, should those bills mirror each other, should they not? One started in the House, one started in the Senate. There was some conversation about joining both groups into one bill or keeping them separate. There were a lot
we get into the weeds,
yes,
but that's
in
how
the
it works.
Weeds,
yes.
Navigating how many weeks and what events are covered and things like that. So we'll continue those conversations, but ultimately just overall supporting an initiative like that. We're one of a few, I think, southeastern states that don't offer that for our employees. So.
And of course, moving that forward to get better benefits, obviously,
yes.
for teachers and for staff. And overall, when you look at education in the state, and we look at public education, how do you look at Alabama? How do you see us moving forward? Where have we come in the last few years?
We are absolutely moving forward. I think, oftentimes you get a very negative narrative about anything, not just public education, but especially through the media. I don't feel like we always focus on our successes, but I can tell you I'm in schools weekly all over this state, and there are amazing people working in our schools. There are amazing students in our schools. There's wonderful communities that are supporting their schools, and there are absolutely fantastic strides being made through things like the Literacy Act and the Numeracy Act, and additional supports being given into our schools for curriculum programs. Our kids are moving, and they're moving forward, and our schools are working harder than ever to make sure our students are successful.
Well, we hope they have a great school year this year as we kind of go into 24 and 25. Absolutely. And Dr. Allison King with the AEA, thanks so much for joining us
Thank
today.
you for
having me. Appreciate it so much. Have a good year. All right.
You as well.
And we'll be right back.
You can watch past episodes of Capitol Journal online anytime at Alabama Public Television's website, aptv.org. Click on the Online Video tab on the main page. You can also connect with Capitol Journal and link to past episodes on Capitol Journal's Facebook page.
And welcome back to Capitol Journal. I'm joined now by ASU President Quinton Ross, Alabama State University. The new school year has begun, which means summer is coming to an end, but it's an exciting time for students on campuses in Montgomery and throughout the state and throughout the nation for that matter. President Ross, thanks so much for joining us.
Thank you for having me.
Let's talk about this. You've been on board, since 2017?
7 years.
7 years. I was thinking when I was doing my research, it's like it's been 2 or 3 years, but no, it's been a while.
Been a while, yeah. And listen, it's a great time to be a Hornet. As you said, we're kicking off the school year, and things are going well at Alabama State University. I'm surrounded by a great group of individuals that love, live, and work there. Great board support, and so we're moving forward. When I started back in 2017, the mantra was ASU moving forward 150 years, and so we have really been on an upward trajectory at Alabama State.
ASU had gone through some turbulence with the presidency for a few years there. You brought a lot of stability to the university in the past 7 years. As we kind of get into this new school year, what's your message to students coming in, especially those freshmen who this is all new to them?
Well, listen, all of our students, our student leaders, those who have been there for a while, do a great job of helping our freshmen come in and get acclimated. But the message to them is to come into a place where history is made and take hold to that history and really immerse themselves in their studies and finding their niche. And so we like to give them every opportunity to do that through our student organizations, our programming, through student affairs. So all of those things we do to help students get acclimated. And so we're excited. We have hit our enrollment mark this year. And of course, with the enrollment cliff that happened nationally, and of course we were still being impacted by that, but we've turned the corner this year, and we're excited about that, hitting all of our marks. Our retention rate has gone up, and so those are the type of things that we have to focus on in order to make sure that the return on investment by the legislature is met.
You mentioned enrollment goals. I mean, COVID did a number to a lot of universities around the nation. It's been a few years we're out of that now. Not that COVID has left us, but the world seems a little bit more back to normal. Yes. How has that affected anything you all are doing now? Maybe you didn't do before COVID, like as we kind of move into the middle 2020s here. How has that changed life on campus?
Well, I think that COVID taught us all a lot. It taught us resilience and what we could do. And I think matter of fact, we just were all together for a Faculty Staff Institute this couple of weeks ago. We hadn't done that since COVID. But what it did was allowed us to shift to Zoom. And so we would have 600 or 700 people on a Zoom platform in order to have our Faculty and Staff Institute. And so that's something that we have in our toolkit. Lord forbid should something else happen to that of that nature. But it was so great being back in person. And so I think it allowed us to kind of step back, COVID did, and analyze, how we were doing things, but showed us how to adjust. And so, of course, online has become extremely popular for those institutions that were not necessarily prepared. I think it got us prepared. And so now it is just another opportunity for us to reach more students. And so we're growing in the online space. We kicked off several years ago our online MBA. And so it has allowed us to find ways to grow. And so
you mentioned growing online, but at the same time, reports of other universities, some in the state, that have thought about closing some of their satellite campuses down just because enrollment numbers at those campuses are down because people are online. ASU a little bit different. Do you worry about lack of growth on the main campus and building projects coming up in the future with online access really becoming such a prevalent force in academics these days?
Well, listen, I believe that in measured growth, and so with the plans that we have put forth, our growth is measured. We don't want to outbuild our enrollment. We want to make sure that we're able to accommodate those that we have, realizing that the online sector is out there. So offering that hybrid opportunity, because students still want to come, touch, and feel and have that college experience. I don't think that that's ever going to go away, but we have to be systematic in our approach to the enrollment. We have students now that some have online classes, but they're also there in person. And so I think we just have to have that balance as we go forward. So our strategic plan will help us fulfill that need.
What are some of the challenges a school like ASU and HBCU faces that maybe an Alabama and Auburn or a Troy or a South Alabama really doesn't face as far as going through the school year, getting ready, when it comes to funding, academics? What are some of those different challenges?
Well, the number one, you talk about finance, but of course, we believe in making do with what we have, being good stewards of the appropriations that we receive from the legislature. When you talk about the number of our students who will come, who need some type of financial assistance, it is great. And that's what you find being the major barrier for young people. And so at our institution, what we do is find ways to help these students and help them stay in school, which is our mission. Other places, you can go, you don't have to worry about whether you're going to stay or not, you're there. But we have to really hone in on those external factors that are in students' lives. So we have the wraparound services through our student support, through our ACES Center, through our Bridge program for students who are first-time students, the first in their family. I had a young man to come to my office the other day, the first in his family to ever go to college, navigating that system. And so those are the supports that we have to put in place that, maybe some of our other institutions don't have to deal with.
But I think it also grows such a loyalty. You're talking about people you mentioned this was the first time anyone in his family had gone to college, but chances are his children, and their children. You create that legacy through ASU because you go to football games and you go to homecoming especially, and it is so powerful, the love that alumni have for ASU.
It is so electric, and we're excited. I mean, listen, anything we have, and we function under Communiversity. We are an institution where we provide services for those who love, live, and work at the institution, but we have a greater commitment to the surrounding community. And so, for example, with our opening of school, we had our annual 5K run, and the community came out to participate because they love. Alabama State University is a home for anyone who wants to come and be a part of all of her rich history and the things to come. And so it's just so electrifying, and that is what we want to make sure that we instill in our young people.
Shifting gears a little bit now, I mentioned homecoming there in football, and I realize you're the president of the university. You're not the coach, you're not the athletic director, but you're in charge of all that.
That's right.
NIL, name, image, and likeness, the transfer portal, college athletics. We think of football first and foremost, but athletics in general has drastically changed throughout the country in just the last couple of years. It seems like it changes more each month.
Yes.
What are those challenges that a school like ASU, you mentioned finances, you may not have, the big oil boosters like you go on the University of Texas campus and there's Lamborghinis lined up outside. What are those challenges that you all face as far as keeping your athletic program to the forefront?
Well, listen, we have to take those challenges and turn them into opportunities. And so I have a phenomenal vice president of intercollegiate sports and athletic director, and Dr. Jason Cable, who's an academician. And he came in and we had this idea dealing with NIL. The whole thing is to make sure that everybody can get something. And so when you talk about what we've done on campus, which with instituting cost of attendance, academic scholarships for individuals, making sure, if you're going to class and you're doing, everyone gets a little something. Now, you're going to have those standout athletes who receive those NIL deals, and we understand that. And so we work with a collective to make sure that we manage that properly. But no one can say that they're not getting anything. And I think that's what we have to be careful of, looking at what the next man gets and whether your worth is as much as his. But we want to tell all of our athletes, you are worth every bit of being here at this institution. And so we provide them that opportunity. But navigating it is really because it changes from one place to another. Now, I've just been appointed to the NC2A Division I Board of Directors. And of course, those are challenges that we're grappling with, not only at Alabama State, but across the country. And I think that something will have to happen to deal with issues like NIL, as well as the transfer portal, which hurts small institutions because you have students here today and they're gone tomorrow. And so it's difficult to build.
Literally can be gone tomorrow.
Exactly. And so it's difficult to build, great sustainable championship teams that way. And so we have to do all we can, which is a challenge, to entice athletes and those individuals to stay with us throughout their athletic career. And of course, all the other things that have come out of the lawsuits that have with the NC2A that we have to deal with in terms of providing continuous academic education after they leave, or their insurance. So it's a monster, but I believe that we'll come up with a solution.
Your thoughts on national legislation passed by Congress up in Washington?
I think that will give us the necessary cover that we need, so there can be some consistency across the country. And so we're going to continue to work that and see how it turns out.
Okay, our remaining couple of minutes here. What are you looking forward to most? I mean, you mentioned 7 years. Each year is a challenge. Each year brings its own, challenges and I guess fortunes. What are you looking forward to the most this year?
Well, I'm really looking forward to, and it's already, made its way. Hitting our benchmarks, our goals, planning for the future, systematic growth as we've talked about. But I truly am pleased. I work alongside some great individuals, faculty and staff, have an administrative staff that's second to none, and our students are our most precious resource and are phenomenal. So just ensuring that they have a successful, safe academic year, that's what I look for.
Well, I know you're excited, and we're always excited when you come on the show. And back in your original stomping grounds, you were a lawmaker here for 15 years.
Yes,
so it's
indeed. And listen, it's always good to come back where you started. But I appreciate you all having me.
ASU President Quinton Ross. Dr. Ross, appreciate so much coming on the show today.
Thank you so much. Thank you.
And we'll be right back with more Capitol Journal here on APT.
You can watch past episodes of Capital Journal online at video.aptv.org. Capital Journal episodes are also available on APTV's free mobile app. You can also connect with Capital Journal and link to past episodes on Capital Journal's Facebook page. And you can listen to past episodes of Capital Journal when you're driving or on the go with Capital Journal podcasts.
And welcome back. Alabama is blessed to have a terrific state park system, 21 parks across the state, and there are major improvements already here and coming over the next few years. Joining me now from the park system is Greg Lein. Greg, thanks so much for joining us.
Thank you so much.
21 parks. I mean, I think a lot of folks are familiar maybe with some of the big name parks along the Gulf Coast, maybe Guntersville, but there are a lot of, even some smaller parks like Blue Springs, for example, kind of just scattered throughout the state.
That's right. Yep.
Talk about this system. What makes you think parks here in Alabama more special than, say, Florida or Georgia? Not saying those parks are bad, but what is something that's unique about our parks?
Well, every state takes a different approach to the program. And I think in Alabama, what sets us apart is the fact that we have such a broad array of amenities in our parks. Most states don't have lodges. You know, they don't have restaurants and conference centers and golf courses. And so we have, I would say, a higher end product in our park system. While we may be small, we offer an awful lot of diversity in terms of what the public can do there.
Well, and speaking of growing and higher end products, I know recently, in fact, we just had it in the show a little bit earlier, the reopening of the pier along Gulf State Park. I know that's something that folks have been looking forward to for a long time.
Yes, and you know, we appreciate the public's patience in that. We had been going through a renovation project of the pier and new decking, new rails, new lighting back in 2019, and we were right on the verge of reopening the pier, and Hurricane Sally came along and caused a little problem for us there. So it damaged the pier. It kind of separated the end from the main section of the pier, and so the public has not been able to use the entire pier since then. And you know, that kind of work, when you're working over the water and you're dealing things with turtle season and other environmental considerations, it just takes time to do that, and there aren't that many, you know, construction firms that do that kind of specialized work. So it's just taken time to get it done, but we've been dedicated to the process. We've had great leadership through our commissioner and the staff down there, and again, the customers have been very patient. We're thrilled to have it reopened and available for the public's use.
And the reaction, I would imagine, has just been the folks down there love that pier.
Over the top.
Yeah.
And you know, ironically, fish love structure. And so it's been like a magnet to fish down there in the water and along the coast during this whole process, and nobody's been fishing the fish. So it's been like a bonanza out there on the end of the pier, that section that had been closed off for the last couple of years. And people are catching big fish, they're catching species of fish that they haven't normally caught there. So it's been a lot of fun to see the response. And then of course we had the supermoon the other night, and there's been some phenomenal photographs of the moon coming up over the pier, and it's just been really great.
You know, back in 2021, voters in the state approved an $85 million bond issue for state parks and historical sites. State parks received about $80 million to kind of catch up on maintenance, you know, even though I know that came after Hurricane Sally hurt the pier. But let's talk about that. A lot of projects needed funding in the state. I know we can't go through everything, but kind of hit the highlights.
Well, kind of from the coast up to the Tennessee Valley, you know, we redid one of the parking lots down there that provides beach access at Gulf State Park, redid the bathrooms in the beach pavilion there. We are about to bid a new campground on the old golf course at Gulf State Park, and then moving north from there, Mayor State Park on the causeway between Spanish Fort and Mobile. We're adding 45 new sites, RV sites, to the campground there, new bathhouse, new camp store and office, and there'll be 6 additional camper cabins there. So we're really excited about those improvements. Moving north, you go up to places like Lake Point State Park. We've been renovating cabins there, putting new roofs on, painting, a lot of refurbishment, new furniture, and now we're doing half the lodge there at Lake Point. So that's very exciting. That's in Eufaula, Alabama. Outside of Auburn, we've got Chewacla State Park, and we've got
the hardest name of any park to pronounce in the state. Just for the record, I just want people to know that. I've struggled with it for years.
Yes. We are doing some work in the campground there, adding a new bathroom and refurbishing some of the RV sites in terms of their borders and the gravel finishings. We're adding a playground, and we're gonna, the one we're really excited about is this, what we call a barn dominium, which is a pavilion that's kind of built in the barn style. It'll have roll-up doors, and that'll be bid in a couple of weeks. So we're really excited about that. Wind Creek State Park, a large portion of the campground is getting refurbished. In the past, we didn't really have, and this is typical of a lot of our older campgrounds, we didn't have 50 amp service. So that meant we couldn't serve the big RVs and motorhomes. We just couldn't do anything for them because we didn't have the electrical capacity. So renovating about 20% of the sites to have that new electrical capacity, water, sewer, Wi-Fi, new bathrooms. We're very excited about that. And we're also adding 5 new 3-bedroom, 3-bath cottages to the park there to complement the smaller cabins that Wind Creek already has. And that's, Lake Martin is such a beautiful lake, really popular. It's accessible from people in Montgomery, Auburn, Birmingham, so it serves a lot of Alabamians.
Atlanta even, folks. I know a lot of folks come down from Georgia there as well.
That's right. And then, we've got the new campground at Oak Mountain State Park, which was opened in May before Memorial Day. That's been a huge hit. And one of the things we've done differently, people will forgive you for a lot of things, but if you have a bad bathroom, they will not forgive you for that. And we've put in these new, what we call family style bathrooms, so everyone can have their own bathroom. There's a shower, there's a sink, there's a toilet in there, and that's just so much more convenient for families. If mom and dad needs to take a small child in there, they're not in a community bathroom setting, they have their own bathroom. So that's been a big hit. We're glad to see that it's really popular. There's a nice pavilion there, a new playground, a new camp store. That has been a big deal for us, and Oak Mountain is so heavily used with the big Birmingham metro population that's there, and it's right at the hub of several interstate connectors. So that has been very popular, and we've done similar work in other locations, but over at Lake Lein, we're going to be refurbishing the whole park, and that'll be bid later this fall. It'll take about a year to do all that work. And then the cave parks, they're getting work. Cathedral got a new campground recently. We're going to be adding a playground and some additional bathrooms up there. Rickwood Caverns is getting a new pool house and a playground and maybe some other features as well. DeSoto State Park is getting a new pool house for its swimming pool. And some of these pools are like community pools. They're used by the local communities, not just the people staying in the campground. And so those summer features are a big deal to those communities, and we're proud to serve them. Montesano's getting their cabins refurbished. The campground got new electrical and RV pad improvements. We're putting in some new bathrooms in the day use area there, pouring some sidewalks to make the passage of the guests a lot easier there. And then over at Joe Wheeler State Park, we've renovated part of the campground. We've put a new pavilion in the day use beach area. We're going to be adding a playground there hopefully this next year, and we're renovating the lodge, the lodge there. The rooms, the doors, the railings, things like that are all getting renovated, as are the windows in the restaurant that face that beautiful marina.
I don't want to skip Cheaha State Park. Huge construction going on there that will just really change, I think, the entire feel and look of that park.
Yeah, I left that one out because it is special. That's one of our biggest projects. And the old hotel there was built in the 70s, And over time, you just get to a point where you need to make a decision about what you're going to do with something like that. And I applaud our commissioner's decision to demolish the old hotel and build a new one, but build it in a slightly different location there in the park. So the new hotel will be right on the edge of the bluff, next to the old restaurant, Cliffside Restaurant, and it'll actually adjoin that. And we're going to have 32 rooms. There'll be a lounge on the roof of the hotel with a sky deck that will have views unlike any other place in Alabama.
The most beautiful views in the whole state are at Chehaw.
Yep, and you know, the old hotel didn't really have those views. In fact, half the rooms looked over a parking lot. All 32 of these rooms will have this magnificent vista out over the valley, Chehaw Lake, and looking toward Talladega.
Got about a minute left here, and you're retiring coming up in October.
I am.
You know, what a great way to kind of maybe cap off this career.
Yes.
Talk about, and again, we got about 30 seconds here, but just, is this something you're most proud of maybe in your tenure?
I really am. Parks are about people, and you know, the stewardship of those public lands and the people we touch, the memories we create. It's a very special mission. And I'm really proud of getting to work with such dedicated staff and be a part of our state's tourism industry and provide fantastic hospitality to not just Alabamians, but the people that come here, the tourists that come here.
And now you can go be a tourist yourself and not be everyone's boss and make them nervous when
I'm
you go
looking
on site.
forward to that, yes.
Greg Lein, appreciate it so much and wish you the best in your retirement.
Thank you. My pleasure.
And we'll be right back.
You can watch past episodes of Capitol Journal online anytime at Alabama Public Television's website, aptv.org. Click on the Online Video tab on the main page. You can also connect with Capitol Journal and link to past episodes on Capitol Journal's Facebook page.
And that's our show for this week. Make sure to tune in again next week when Todd Stacy will be back in this chair. As we leave you tonight, some of the sites of the construction underway on the new State House that will replace the building we are currently in. Construction is set to be completed sometime in 2026, with lawmakers holding their first session in the new State House in 2027. For all of us here at Capitol Journal, I'm Jeff Sanders. We'll see you next time.